I want to talk about childhood pain, and I want to just kind of like give a description of what it is. I use the term pain because we may be carrying things that are from our childhood, but might not be trauma, uh, but or abuse, but still some form of this childhood pain that I'm talking about. So basically, childhood pain is a hurt that we experienced in our childhoods that we carry with us, a messaging that we carry with us into our adult lives that hasn't been healed. And it can take many different forms. It could be uh, that maybe you were ignored or neglected as a child because your parents were working all the time, so they couldn't give you the emotional support that you needed or the connection that you needed. It may be that your parents were overly controlling and they didn't let you do things that you wanted to do. And so your is that of not having freedom, not being able to explore your interests. It could be that you were parentified. So your parents might have been um, working and asking you to take care of the other siblings and giving you an adult role in your childhood. And so you carry that feeling of responsibility and not feeling like you really had a childhood because you had so much responsibility placed on you. Your parents could have been overly critical and you never heard good things. You never got compliments. You didn't get validation when you were a child. And so you look for that in your relationships with others as an adult. And so these are all like examples of childhood pain that we might be carrying. And we also have like abuse, that you could be carrying the scars of abuse, that you have trust issues because someone that you loved abused you physically, emotionally, or sexually. And so you carry that, a mistrust of other people in your life. So these are all examples of childhood pain that we're carrying. And maybe we're not even aware that we're carrying this childhood pain, but it's there and it shows up. And often it shows up in our parenting because we will have triggers that will remind us of how we felt when we were kids. So it's so important that we understand that this childhood pain can show up and will show up in our adult lives because we carry it from our childhood into our adult lives. And it will definitely show up in our parenting unless we take the time to heal from that. Um, Ayanna Van Zant, she said many, many years ago, I heard this when before I became a mom, her famous quote is, if we don't heal the wounds of the past, we continue to bleed. And it is really the truth. If we don't go back and try to understand the pain that we experienced as children, and try to heal from it, then we carry it. We continue to bleed in our adult lives and definitely in our parenting lives. And so that is the reason why we need to go there, even though it's painful, and to remember how we felt during that time in our childhoods. Okay, so that's basically childhood pain, and I know this because I came from childhood pain, and this is why I have this passion for this. Right, I came from a very controlling parents, top-down parents. Children were seen but not heard, and so in my childhood, I never felt like I had a voice because my parents didn't care what I thought, never asked me. I wasn't really allowed to speak my opinions. I didn't feel safe to speak my opinions because I would be um, reprimanded or I would be punished or criticized, right, if I gave my opinions. And so that was one aspect of childhood pain, but I also had abuse, and I had a mother that was a narcissist, right? Narcissistic. And so I was always, I was parentified. I had to take care of my mom when she was sick. I had to do a lot of the chores at home. She asked me to do the chores. She didn't really help me with the chores. And then I was abused by my dad at a young age in elementary school. So I carried a lot of childhood pain because of my childhood experience. And I will tell you that I know that it showed up in my adult life because I attracted unhealthy relationships because that was my lived experience. And that's the thing. When you grow up with childhood pain, you think you normalize that. You think that this is the way it should be. Being yelled at your parents or not having a voice in your home. You think this is normal. This is what it is. And it wasn't until I became an adult that I realized that this wasn't normal and actually it wasn't healthy. And uh, and because of that, I could change it. I could I had to go through the process of healing so that I didn't carry it into my further into my adult life. And I definitely didn't want to carry it into my parenting life when I first became a mom. So that quote, if you don't heal the wounds of your past, you continue to bleed, that quote resonated with me before I became a mom. And I really decided that I wanted to go through a healing journey to understand the pain that I was carrying so that I wouldn't repeat it with my own children. And so that was my journey, hearing this. So I said that I felt like I didn't have a voice. And then in my adult life, I didn't express my opinions. In fact, I sought opinions from other people because I didn't trust my own voice. And it wasn't until I was a lot older that I understood, oh, this is coming from my childhood because I was given the message that my voice didn't matter, my opinion didn't matter. But I'm not that child anymore, and my opinion does matter, right? I had to reframe it and change it in my mind. And that's something that we can do once we're aware where it's coming from, these messages. Because what happens is when we're being parented by our parents, uh, the way they're parenting us, like maybe yelling at us or reprimanding us or saying, no, don't speak. It's not your place to speak. Your opinion doesn't matter. When we do that, we actually have children, they have an internal dialogue from the way they're being treated by their parents. And they never blame their parents. This is what I've learned from counseling for so many years with teenagers. They never blame their parents. They always blame themselves. They say, you know what? I'm bad. I shouldn't have done that. I deserve to be yelled at. Uh, I, I'm not worthy. These are the messages that we carry uh, as children and that follow us into our adult lives because we have this internal dialogue that if we're being punished, then we're bad. If we're being yelled at, then we deserve it, right? And so that's why I feel so passionately about uh, changing the way we are with our kids because of this internal dialogue that they carry into their adult lives that can be really damaging and hard as an adult to carry that. And I say it's our job to teach our children how to be healthy. So we have to be healthy ourselves in order to do that. Now, how do you know that you're carrying childhood pain? Because the first step is awareness. Like you have to be aware in order to make any kinds of changes. And so um, awareness is, okay, why am I responding this way? Uh, how come I'm feeling this way about something? Okay, um, so your children will actually help you to understand if you're still carrying the pain and if you're getting triggered. Okay, so you might be like overly here's oh yeah here's some clues as to like what could be happening that but you actually are still carrying childhood pain. Okay. So um if you're really fearful or an overprotective of your children, that could be coming from your childhood, right? Because you grew up with fear. That was your experience. If you find it difficult to enjoy them, like you're tense, you're worried about what they're doing and how they're behaving in public, and you don't feel peaceful, and you react strongly when they do something wrong because maybe you were punished. When you did something wrong, maybe your parents reacted really strongly and reprimanded you. If you're trying to control them, then that is a sign of carrying childhood pain because maybe your parents were always trying to control you, tell you what to do, expect you to listen. If you're always telling your child what to do, right? This is also childhood pain because we always feel like we need to direct our kids because that might have been our childhood experience. Or if you yell or you get angry really easily, you don't have patience. Um, Maybe you're overly sensitive to your children. Like they do something and you think that it's about you. You personalize their words and their actions. And you say they're against me or why don't they like me? Right? This is childhood pain because that's how you felt when you were a kid. Maybe you're embarrassed when they misbehave, right? Because your parents were embarrassed. They were like, Smarten up, stop acting that way. We're in public, right? This is also a sign of childhood pain. Maybe you're afraid when your children have intense emotions, like if they're having a temper tantrum or if they're screaming or they're swearing at you, then you're afraid. You're like, what is going on? This is strange because this might have been also your experience as a kid. Or if you don't feel like you're loved, or you feel like uh, you don't have the skills, or you're unconfident in your parenting, that could come from childhood pain as well. This feeling of not being adequate, not having strength for this, not having confidence. If you don't feel worthy, or you don't feel like your kids appreciate you, right? That is also a clue as to perhaps you are carrying this childhood pain. I will share with you when I was a new mom, with my first one. My first one's old now; he's 24. Uh, and I made a lot of mistakes with him because I was still sorting out and healing from my childhood. But I was controlling with him. I was directing him a lot, um, and telling him what to do. And here's the thing with kids is they will help us to change. So my oldest, when he was probably around 9 or 10, he said to me, "Mom, can you please ask me and not tell me? Because when you tell me, I don't want to do it. But when you ask me, then I want to do it." And then I realized that I was repeating this controlling, telling kind of parenting that I grew up with. And I knew that I wanted a relational parenting. I wanted to be a relational parent. I wanted us, my son and I, to have a good relationship. And me telling, demanding, was getting in the way of us having a good relationship. So he verbalized it to me. Thankfully, he felt safe enough to verbalize that to me because I didn't feel safe to verbalize that with my parents. So he felt safe enough to do that. And then I changed. I asked. And I have been that way ever since, asking, not telling, because I know that it doesn't work well with our kids to always be directing and telling them. But asking them is inviting, it's a different feeling when you're being invited than when you're being directed or tried to be controlled, right? And kids, like nobody likes to be controlled. We don't like to be controlled as adults, and our children are the same. They don't want to be controlled. They want to be invited, part of it, right? Um, so so that's something that I learned from my child, and your children will teach you. If you can keep like a safe, open relationship with them, then they will tell you the things that you're doing that could be coming from your childhood that is getting in the way of a really good, strong relationship with your kids. And I talk a lot about relationship because um, you want to have a strong relationship with your children uh, because you didn't experience that maybe in your childhood. And when we are relational with our kids, then we're not going to have these battles. We're not going to be um, having children that are going to do bad things. I mean, they may do some bad things, but at least if they have a safe environment at home to talk to you about it, um, and get your help, then they will feel supported. Okay, so let me just go into a little bit about healthy relationships, okay? Because I didn't grow up with healthy relationships, so I had to learn. And this is the thing with childhood pain is that if we didn't experience what is healthy, then maybe we don't know what is healthy. If we grew up with yelling, then that's normal, right? And so then we just continue that cycle with our kids. But I'm going to tell you that there are three components to a healthy relationship. And these are the three things we need all three. These are the three things our children need to be taught and we need to model to them so that they know this is a healthy relationship. Okay, so the first thing is that they are seen. So they're acknowledged when they come home from school. We're like, "Hi, how are you, honey? How did your day go?" They are important, an important part of the family, and so they need to feel like they're seen. And the second thing is that they feel heard. Like I shared with you that I didn't feel like I had a voice. We need to allow our children to be able to speak how they feel about things, what their opinions are, share stories about their lives, right? Because that is bonding, that's connection, that's healthy. And then the last thing is to feel supported. So if your children are wanting to try things, that we're not letting our fear get in the way. Okay, I will tell you, I do have fear, parent fear. I think it's really normal for us to feel fearful, right? Especially if we grew up in a very overprotective environment. My parents were very overprotective of me as well, me and my brother. And and so I do carry this parent fear. And my oldest is he's an adventurer and he does a lot of things that scare me. You know, he'll go on hikes by himself, he'll go on trips by himself. He's going on a trip actually by himself. Um, but he's 24 now, but next week. And yeah, so I do have this parent fear. Is something going to happen to him? What's going to happen? But parent fear stifles our kids. And I recognize that. I recognize that it stifled me from doing anything adventurous. So we have to, yes, I will. I will repeat after this. We have to check in our fear because we don't want our children to to be stifled and to not live fully, right? And so when I think of my son, what kind of man I want him to be, I want him to be fearless and bold and confident. And if I'm putting my fear on him, like, don't do it, don't go on this trip by yourself, and I'm not creating that man. I'm not helping to foster a confident, bold man, right? And so that's what helps me to put that parent fear in check. Okay, the three components of a healthy relationship that you feel that you are seen, that you feel that you are heard, your opinions matter, you can speak openly in a safe environment about things, you can express your opinions, even though you know there may be disagreement. Okay, that's healthy. And the last one is to feel supported. Okay, and this is with couples too, right? This is all around these three things we need from each other in a family dynamic, right? To feel seen, to feel heard, and to feel supported. And then you know the relationship is healthy. And we can also teach this to our children with their friendships because they may have friends that are not uh, hearing their opinions, ignore them, right? Tell them their ideas are bad, right? So they're not supported. So I also do teach this to my teenagers that I work with. Is that a healthy friendship? Because these are the components of a healthy relationship, and one of them is missing. So, so important that we know that these are the three things that every relationship needs to be healthy. Uh, because then we can teach that to our kids, and then our kids will attract healthy friendships, right? And relationships in their adult lives. So so important that we model it and that we teach it to our kids. Okay, so the other thing I want to talk about is personalizing our children's behavior, because I think that's really a huge a part of what we carry in our childhoods. I remember when my oldest got sent to the office. Now, I was teaching at the school my son was going to, and I think he was like grade one, maybe grade two. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly, but I remember seeing him in the office, and I was like, "What are you doing in the office?" I was thinking to myself. And then I was like, I was embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the school that I'm teaching at, and he's in the office and he got in trouble. And then I just had to stop for a moment because I realized that I was making it about me and not about my child. I was making it about me because of my childhood pain. Like, oh, it's embarrassing. Maybe your parents were like, what you're doing is embarrassing, right? So it helped a lot that I stopped and thought about, why am I being embarrassed? He is his own person. He's allowed to make mistakes. It's okay if he gets in trouble by, the teacher. That's okay. That's learning. And then to have the dialogue with your child. So what happened? This is relational parenting, right? So what happened? Well, I saw you were in the office. Like, oh, I was doing this. I can't even remember the story, but I just remember how I felt at that time. But then because I stopped myself from personalizing, I was able to have a conversation with him. And it never happened again. Like he was never in the office again. But but maybe if I had given into the personalization and gotten mad at him and said, you embarrassed me. Like, this is my school too. Like, how come you are doing that? Then that's shaming him and making him feel bad about himself, right? And so that's why we have to change what we experience in our childhoods, because we don't want our children carrying these messages that mom's disappointed in me, and I'm not good, I'm not worthy, right? This is why we have to be aware. When we're aware, then we can totally change the way we are with our kids. And yeah, feel free like to ask questions as I'm going along here, because I really don't mind being interrupted. If you have any questions about this, because I know this is big. This is this is big stuff. Um, so yeah, so just yeah,
Right, I put a few questions into the chat if you can see them. If not, let me know and I can repeat them to you.
yeah. I can't find the chat. I'm sorry. I don't see the chat where it is.
Okay, do you want me to, I can give you a couple
Yeah,
of
I would
shows.
love that.
Our first question was, can childhood pain cause physical and mental pain?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Any kind of emotional pain can cause physical pain. We're all connected, right? So I know my youngest is very sensitive, and so if he's nervous about things, he will get a belly ache, right? When we're stressed, we might get a headache. I get migraines when I'm really stressed. So our body will tell us things are not right. So absolutely, physical pain will show up. What was it? Physical and what else?
Mental.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because you can have anxiety because of things that happened. I give the example of if your parents were really uh, had high expectations of you, like they didn't want any marks lower than a B, let's say, or an A, and you had that pressure to perform, then that is something that could lead to anxiety and perfectionism. And those are both not healthy, right? It's not healthy to have chronic anxiety or perfectionism, because then you're never going to be happy with anything you do because it always has to be perfect. So we have to understand, oh, that's where it's coming from, that this perfectionism, because my parents expected me to perform and do well, not make any mistakes. Okay, was there another question?
Yeah. The next question is, what if you've avoided this pain for many years and it keeps leaking out and showing up unexpectedly? What are the solutions?
Okay, I want to give you some relief. Sometimes my pain still shows up, even though I consider myself healed. Uh, the key is to be aware. The key is to question yourself. Okay, so I shared a post on my social media recently. A friend was saying, oh, like you're beautiful, right? Like, don't you think you're beautiful? And I'm like, no, I never think of myself that I'm beautiful, right? And then I went home that night, I was thinking about that. I was like, okay, Anne, like, why don't you think you're beautiful? What happened in your childhood? I was giving a little counseling session to myself. And I realized that that messaging came from my childhood, that my mom always praised my cousin for being so beautiful. Oh, your cousin is so beautiful. She's so beautiful. And she never said that about me. So I never heard those words. And so then my identity wasn't that I was beautiful. My identity was another thing, was like, okay, she's competent, she's a go-getter, she's career-minded, but she's not beautiful. And so I realized that messaging came from my childhood. Okay, once we understand that this messaging is coming from my childhood, but I'm not that child anymore. And my mom doesn't define me, I define me. And yes, I am beautiful, right? This is how we change the dialogue that we have. But for sure, it's going to leak out sometimes, and that's okay. It's okay for it to leak out. It's just, we have to just say, hold on a second, where is this thought coming from? Why am I feeling this way about myself? And then go back, maybe, oh, yeah, this is what happened. This was my experience. Okay, but I'm an adult now, and I don't have to think this way about myself anymore. Okay.
Next
Any,
question. Yeah, the next question is, as we heal our childhood traumas while parenting, how do we repair our relationship with our kids age appropriately, knowing that we are still in the process of healing?
okay, so I think we have to be humble. Like I never heard apologies from my parents, but as a parent, I apologize to my kids. I will say to them, you know what? I was stressed and I overreacted, and I want you to know I love you, and I'm sorry that I did that. I'm going to really try hard not to do that again. Uh, this is humility, and this is building relationship. Like we're modeling to our kids, it's okay. We're human. We're going to make mistakes, but we're going to try again. And they can also make mistakes, apologize, and try again, right? This is the messaging that we want to leave with them. We have to reconcile. Now, and make an effort to do better next time. Don't keep repeating it, because they're not going to believe you then, right? They're not going to believe that mom's really sorry. So we do have to step back and say, like, I want to be different, and I'm going to make an effort, conscious effort to change it. And I always say, start with a feeling statement. Honey, I'm sorry, and I didn't want to hurt you, and I apologize for hurting you. I realize that was wrong. I want us to be good and feel good around each other. I'm going to really try hard not to do whatever you did again. But I need your help too. Like, if I am doing it, maybe you can give a sign like, Mom, you're doing it again, right? Like, get help from your kids also, because they can help us to change, right? If they feel safe enough with us. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Should I take this question? Or is there another one? There's
There-
one about blame. I want to talk about that
Yeah,
one.
go ahead and do that one, and then I'll give you the other one.
Yeah, I want to talk about blame. There is no room for blame in a healthy relationship. Okay. You blaming yourself, your kids blaming you, you blaming your kids. Okay. Blame is negative. It's not healthy. All right. And so teenagers like to blame. I know I have a teenager. He's going to be 14. This is part of the teenage brain, parents. So please don't personalize. Okay. I'm just going to say teenagers have this very critical brain. All right. And their overactive emotional brain is developing, is like it's heightened, it's sensitive. Uh, so this is normal. So we can't personalize our teenagers like when they get overreactive, overly emotional about things, or blaming. Okay. Because this is normal and this is part of the teenage brain. And you need to say that to yourself when you hear your child blaming you. You need to say, oh, yeah, this is part of being a teenager, because it'll help you to respond in a better way. Right. So, yeah, I will admit he blames me sometimes. And so then I say to him, this is how I handle it. I say, honey, how does blaming help this situation? See, I start with a question, right? Because I'm inviting conversation. I'm not telling him, don't blame me, right? I'm inviting conversation. Okay, honey, how does blaming help the situation? Because blaming doesn't actually lead to problem solving. And maybe we can problem solve this together instead of blaming, right? Do you see how that's a different dialogue? I've actually done that with my youngest, and it really works. Like he will stop and be like, oh, yeah, blaming doesn't actually help. It's I'm teaching him not to do that. I'm not telling him. I'm asking and I'm teaching him. I'm getting him to be reflective, self reflective, and think about his actions, right? But I'm teaching him a healthy way to approach it instead. Okay. You're very welcome. Okay. Was there another question?
The other question we had from Amy is, how do you repair or heal unhealthy messages that have already been given to children who are now teenagers?
Okay. So, first of all, you focus on your relationship with them. Okay. This is really key, parents. When you have a good relationship with your kids, they are going to be more open to listening to you, right? So you work on their relationship, you model healthy relationship, you tell them how much you love them, you validate their feelings, you listen to them. Okay, all of the healthy things that I told you about, being seen, being heard, being supported. Okay, and then when you know the relationship is good with your child, then you can say, honey, some of the things that you saw were not healthy. I want you to know that because I don't want you carrying unhealthy uh, ideas that are unhealthy into your adult life, right? And you got to probably be specific without shaming. Like if it's the other parent, don't bring up the other parent's name. Okay. We have to be very, very careful if we're separated or divorced. And I am in that situation, so I know this, that we're not putting down the other parent, but we say to our child, uh, the yelling is actually not healthy, honey. You understand yelling is not healthy, right, honey? Okay, how do you know something's healthy? This is what I teach also. You know it's healthy because it feels good. And you know it's unhealthy because it doesn't feel good. Okay. Like after you've been yelled at, you don't feel good. If somebody's yelling at you, a lot of times they feel bad afterwards. They're like, oh, I yelled at my loved one. I shouldn't have done that. Okay. So that's when we know it's unhealthy. So if it doesn't feel good, even with your friends, then it may not be healthy. Okay. So I want you to know like the way that you're being treated, if it's not feeling good, it's probably not healthy. Yeah, I get this a lot from parents. Okay, so we have to be really careful with our kids if we've come from childhood pain. We're not traumatizing our children. Like, honestly, I did not tell my children about my childhood pain. Like, my youngest doesn't know anything about it. He's 14, but my oldest, he's 24. I have told him some things because he was already an adult and I felt like he could handle it. Uh, you have to remember, our children love us so much. And if they know that we've been hurt, that we've had pain in our childhoods, that we were abused or neglected, they feel that. And then what benefit is that for them, right? And also, you don't want your children seeing you as weak. Like I always say, you have to parent from a place of strength. And if you're showing that, oh, your weakness, right? And they're going to feel sorry for you, that's not good parenting. You don't want your children feeling sorry for you. You want to show, that you're capable, that you can do this, that you have the strength to support them and teach them. So you have to always ask yourself, am I sharing this story? Why am I sharing this story? Because it is age appropriate. I think it's okay to share when they're adults because I think they will understand and then your parenting role is done anyways. But when they're young, you got to be mindful of them carrying that and feeling bad and feeling like they need to protect you, right? That's not a child's role to protect their parent. It's your role to protect them. So we have to be really, really careful but we're not disclosing all our pains to them. Oh, sorry, I missed that question. Can you go through the questions, please?
Yeah, so the last one I had
Lisa?
was, so blaming doesn't help. Does this mean that we forgive and forget and not acknowledge actions and responsibilities?
Um, we can only forgive if the person's asking for forgiveness, right? Like, or okay, so I think it just depends. All right, so I say we forgive our parents for ourselves. Because if we carry bitterness and anger from our childhood, it affects our lives. And what we should be moving towards is making our lives better. But when we hold on to these negative emotions from our childhoods, it doesn't make our life better, right? And we can also say, I'm going to attract healthy relationships now. I only want healthy relationships now because as a child, I suffered and I didn't have healthy relationships in my family. So now I want friends that are supportive, that care about me. I want to have healthy relationships in the workplace, and I want my family to be healthy. We make that decision, right? So that is super, super important that we're not carrying. So yes, I have forgiven my dad. I have a good relationship with my mom now. One of the things I want to say to you parents is you have to tell your childhood story. If you keep it inside you, it continues to live. But once you take the story out of you, which I did, well, when I was in my late 20s, I went to see a counselor and I unleashed my story. I cried, I let it all out. Okay. That is part of the healing process is that we have to tell our story and we have to tell it to someone who's safe. So maybe a counselor is safe, a really good friend, but we have to disclose it to someone safe. And if we're not still comfortable disclosing it, we could journal it because that's a first step, right? Um, and then as I went through the process, I said, I don't want to carry these negative feelings about my parents anymore. I'm going to release it and I'm going to forgive them. And part of the forgiveness is understanding why. Why did my parents behave this way? Why did they parent me this way? Maybe they didn't know better. Maybe this was modeled in their childhood. Maybe they had abuse, right? So this develops compassion. This is like, okay, so my parents had struggles. My mom had a very traumatic event that happened in her childhood that I didn't learn about till I was an adult. And then it helped me to understand her better. So these are the things that help us to release and forgive, right? And we're forgiving for us, not for them. So we're not carrying those negative emotions into our adult lives.
There's a couple of questions here that are semi-related, so I'll ask them together.
Okay.
In this day of no psychiatric help from our health system, how do we navigate these huge issues of healing ourselves? Because we aren't all strong enough or in a place where we can do it by ourselves or from a book. And then someone else has asked, how do we access a counselor who is safe? So I think they're a bit related.
Okay. Um, okay. So like I didn't have extensive counseling, even though I had very severe childhood pain. Uh, but I did have this desire to heal and to get better. I think that's where it starts. I think it's a conscious effort to say, I want to get better. Right. Okay. So this is the first thing. Like, okay, with regards to the counseling, you can try out different counselors and see who you're comfortable with. I was lucky. I had a really good counselor the very first time I went for counseling. I felt very safe with her. But you got to feel your feelings, right? If you don't feel safe with the person, then you say, this isn't going to work. I need to try another counselor, right? It's okay if you don't feel safe. Uh, that's your boundary. But what I was going to say is like for me, there was a crisis point that made me seek counseling, right? Because I was still continuing this toxic relationship with my mother in my adult life, and it was affecting me so badly. And so I would decided I'm going to see a counselor, right? So, and I got lucky. But you got to keep the journey. Like it may not happen overnight. It may not happen in one session. You're going to have to keep active in the journey of healing, okay? Because you have to remember like that childhood experience left imprints in your brain about yourself. And so it's not going to be healed overnight. It's a process of healing. It's taken me like a long time, many years, maybe decades, right? And even still now I see it still showing up sometimes, but I'm aware and I can handle it better, right? Than I could before. Every year I'm getting better and better at it. And that's the way you got to see it. You got to see my healing journey may be my lifetime, that I'm continually working on it. And a coach, a mental health coach. I'm part of a mental health simplified. I'm a coach on there. Um, that is really great to have too. Because a coach is going to move you through to to now in the future, and putting your energy into what kind of life you want. Whereas counseling is more like, let's delve into the past. And I do believe you need to delve into the past, but you don't need to sit there. You can propel into the future how you want your life to be.
Our next question is about adult children who set their own boundaries. How do you communicate with them properly if this boundary isn't working for both sides?
Okay, so you have to have an open dialogue, right? Okay, remember, I'm a relational parent. So we're going to work on relationship and we're going to speak in a relational way. So this boundary isn't working. Um, what do you think is going to work? Or how come it's not working? Why do you think it's not working? I would ask that, like my adult child. Why do you think it's not working? How can we make it better? How can we change it? When you work together on a solution. And then if it's still not working, again, you say, okay, still not working. What can we do? Maybe if it's not working, maybe we both need to go for therapy together because maybe the both of us are not in a good headspace uh, to problem solve this alone, just the two of us. Okay, so just to be open to that.
Our next question is about journaling, and they're asking if you have any journaling tips.
Like I'm a journaler. I'm a writer. I've been doing that since I was a kid. Uh, Maybe just start with your emotions. Just say, do a check in with yourself. How am I feeling today? If I'm feeling sad, why am I feeling sad? Right? If I'm feeling happy, what's making me happy today? This is part of awareness, right? This is how we heal and we get better. And then you know that it's not healthy to sit in sadness. So you say in your journal, you'll be like, I'm gonna take an action plan. We have to take action, right? This is how we move through healing. My action plan is I'm gonna do 3 things that make me happy uh, tomorrow, or 1 thing that makes me super happy, right? So this is a journaling. The journaling really is your inner thoughts, your awareness. Uh, it's really for you, but then know that you got to have action to change because nothing will change if you don't take action.
Got lots of questions here. Do you recommend that kids go to counseling even though their prefrontal cortexes aren't fully developed yet, or should they wait until they're adults?
Okay, so again, I'm a relational parent. So the first thing is I'm working on my relationship with them. I'm modeling healthy. I'm teaching them what's healthy. And then I'm asking them if they're still struggling with anxiety, if they're struggling with some trauma. I say, honey, do you think you would like to speak with someone other than me? Would you like to speak with a professional? Right? Because then they have buy-in and they know, like, sometimes the perception of our children is that if we're getting all these people to talk to them, they start to think that there's something wrong with them. And that's what I worry about. I worry about the internal dialogue that children have about themselves. So that's why I say, ask them, what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea to see a professional about this, to work on your anxiety? How about the school counselor? I do have parents that reach out to me and say, my child is anxious. Do you think you can work with her or him? And I appreciate that. But I also want buy-in from the kids. So I'm like, how do you feel about working with me? Is it okay? Like, are you comfortable? I want you to be comfortable, right? This is relational. So yes, for sure, involve your children in the dialogue about it. Don't just make them go.
All right, our next question is, a lot of times people say or think that I'm making my experiences up about childhood pain. I am sure me and my siblings all share this, but for them they left home earlier and we were around my parent and were around my parents less. Whereas I could never leave, so I experienced this abuse more. How do you deal with people questioning your life experiences?
It's your experience. It's no one else's experience. Your experience is true to you, right? So whatever you experience, that's how you felt. I'm going to tell you, when I told my mom my childhood story, like I knew I had to confront her. This is also part of the healing is confronting people who hurt you. And I didn't have that opportunity with my dad because he died when I was 21. But I talked to my mom and I did it in a way where she wouldn't be hurt. I said, Mom, I'm going to share what it was like for me as a child. And I'm not blaming you at all. I just want you to understand my perspective, how I felt as a kid. And I shared with her, I said, I wasn't happy. I wasn't a happy kid. I didn't feel happy. And my mom took it quite well. So this is what I'm saying. I'm saying we're not here to convince other people, right? We're only here to heal ourselves, to focus on ourselves. If this is how we felt as a kid, it's valid. These are your feelings. There's nothing wrong with your feelings. Okay, so don't let anyone make you feel bad or question your experience. That was your experience. Okay, it's your truth. So nobody should be questioning it.
Next question is about, with the most toxic relationships, like a narcissistic mother who refuses to work with you or stop the negativity, I finally had to sever the relationship. It's been a great relief, but is this not healthy? I think severing the relationship isn't not healthy.
Um, I took breaks from my mom. I grew up with a narcissistic mom. I did take breaks from her. And when she is being unhealthy, I don't talk to her. Okay. This is my boundary. Why? Because I want to be healthy. Now, do I still love my mom? Of course I do. Actually, my relationship with my mom's really good now because I have a voice and I tell her, I say, Mom, you're not being healthy. Or Mom, you don't, you're being manipulative right now. Like I call her on her crap because I have a voice now and I'm not a little kid. I'm an adult, right? But if your mom's not willing to listen, it's totally 100% okay to take a break, right? And if you have to sever the relationship for years, then to be healthy, then you do that. It's not your job to change your mom. It's not my job to change my mom. It's our job to live healthy and be healthy, right? So we have to have boundaries with unhealthy people. We don't have to have them in our lives if they're being unhealthy.
We just have a couple of follow-ups to that, and I think you've addressed a little bit of this, but someone was mentioning that they're worried about hurting their mom by telling them the truth about how she didn't protect them, and they're scared of telling the truth. And then also they met someone, I'm not sure if this is the same person, but they've been told by counselors that you can't separate yourself from your parents, so they're scared to set a boundary.
Absolutely false. You can separate yourself from toxic, uh, unhealthy people, whether they're your parents or not, doesn't matter. If you're an adult, you have the choice. You're not the child anymore. When we're children, we don't have the choice. Like we have to grow up with the parents that we were given, right? Uh, that's why we carry trauma with us because we couldn't run, we couldn't flee, we couldn't fight, we were helpless. But you're not helpless when you're an adult. You actually have power. All right. And I'm going to empower you, parents, today. If you have unhealthy, if you have parents that are being unhealthy with you, even as adults, then you have to call them on it and say, you're being manipulative. That's not healthy. I don't appreciate the way that you're talking to me right now. That's not healthy. That's a boundary that you're setting. And you're teaching them what's healthy because maybe they don't know. And then you can take a break. You're like, oh, my mom's being really toxic right now. Even though my mom, like I get along well with my mom now, but she does have her times when she's blaming, blaming, blaming. And I'm like, no, mom, I'm not taking your blaming. And then I don't talk to her for a while, for a couple days or so, right? But then I'll check in on her again. How are you today, mom? Right? Understand, like you may have a parent that has mental illness. Like my mom has mental illness. And so I guess that's why it makes me more patient with her. But also we still have to have boundaries. We can't carry that illness and make us ill. We have to have boundaries so that we can be healthy. Well, we have to be healthy for our own children.
I think there's a question. I'm trying to see if this is a question. I like it when you said they love us a lot. And I was thinking, yes, they see us in reality, they follow us. So I moved to seek relief from my own pain, my own journey. Since they look at us, one might think that they would also take something from there without realizing it to alleviate or promote relief of the pain that we have inherited from them. Right? Question mark.
Yeah, we don't want our children to see us as weak or victims. We want them to see a confident, strong parent. And if we don't feel it, we have to act it, even if we don't feel it, right? Like there's times I don't feel it. But we have to act it. We have to be really careful that our children are not being parentified. That means that they're filling us up. We fill them up. That's our job, for us to fill them up, not for them to fill us up. I have so many teenagers that worry about their parents, and I explain to them that is not your role. Your role is to be the kid, and your parents' role is to worry about you, care about you, give you what you need, right? This is how we change things. So we have to be really, really careful and ask yourself, like, I know it's happened with me in my moments of struggle where I felt like, oh my gosh, my kids are taking on my burden. I don't want them to take on my burden. And so then I will be like, I need to get help from friends. I need to talk to adults about this and not my children.
I think we just have time for one last question. So, this last one is, what about supporting your child whose other parent is a controlling narcissist, but also a great dad when it suits?
Okay, I understand this question. I have a similar situation with my ex. So your power is with your child, not with your ex or not with your co-parent, okay? Or husband or whoever it is. Your power is with your child. So you're going to focus on your child. If your child is visiting with you and he is displaying unhealthy behavior, then you work with your child. You say, honey, like, the blaming is not healthy. Uh, what can we do instead? Right? You develop the relationship and you're teaching them and modeling to them, even though the other parent isn't helping. It doesn't matter. You are working with your child. All right. You're not trying to change the ex because you're not going to, but you do have impact on your children. And it doesn't matter. It only takes one healthy parent. One healthy parent can make a huge difference in that child's life. So you've got to be that one. And you've got to teach them, okay, feeling seen. Is dad like, do you feel seen? Like if your child talks to you about dad, and you can say, okay, do you feel seen? It's healthy to feel seen, right, honey? You're not putting dad down, but you're teaching him or her. This is healthy, right? This is what's healthy. Yeah, so I don't believe in, I just read this. Her dad also recently died and she doesn't want to talk about it. Okay, so, grief is really, really hard on kids. I have students that don't want to talk about the death of their parents, and I respect that. I will never force anybody to talk about something they don't want to talk about. Uh, it's okay to not talk about it. But here's the messaging you say to your child, you say, I'm here for you, right? So if you need to talk about it, you want to talk about it, honey, then you're safe to talk about it with me. All right. You open the door, you leave the invitation open, but you let them have their space and their time to process the grief. You never force children to talk about things they don't want to talk about. You give them their space. They will come to you if they feel safe, eventually at some point. But it's their timing and it's their decision.